quite a few questions come through. The first two I'm actually going to read together because it's a theme that becomes quite common. And that's a theme, let's see if somebody else resonates with this. It's a theme essentially that is built around the concept of wanting to manifest specifically in the realm of finances and financial abundance. But you read the books, you do the affirmations, you've tried the exercises, you've followed the steps, you've invested in some new age guru that has given you the special mantras, whatever it may be. You've buried the secret crystals in a certain place on certain times, whatever it may be. We've all come across different aspects of how the secret to manifesting money. And we seem to be able to manifest things in other areas, but the bank account still seems to be sleeping. Anybody relate to that? Anyone ever had that as a kind of a theme that comes through? Yeah, it's common. And the two questions are from Christopher and Cindy, and I'll read them out first, and I'll get into it because I've definitely got some value that I can add to you guys for that. So Christopher says, it's been almost a year, and at first it seemed like my manifesting practice was working, but then it quickly took a turn for the worse. I lost thousands on all kinds of different instances. I've come across a manifesting course that uses brain frequencies and soundtracks of pi mixed with binaural beats and subliminal messaging in high studio sound quality that claims to decalcify the pineal gland and create abundance in the same way the ancient Egyptians understood when they would practice the same concept inside the chambers. And they claim just a few minutes a day works wonders. I know you've worked with brain frequency and sounds, but I don't think in the frequency of the golden ratio. Or if you have, what do you think of this concept is and how valid is it? Cindy says, I've been listening to your lessons sometimes more than once. I've listened to all the 2023 calls. I searched out your talks on YouTube and Spotify, as well as some of the people you recommend to listen to, such as Owen Locker Jr. and Bob Proctor and Dr. Joe Dispenza. I'm also several hours into the book Think and Grow Rich. I've rewatched The Secret. I've tried grounding, affirmations, note cards, journaling, and some short meditations. However, my financial situation has drastically gotten worse. What am I doing wrong? Why is it happening? Please help. Again, anyone resonate or relate to a certain version of that on higher or lower kind of aspects? Absolutely. So let me give you guys some insight here that I think may help. In fact, let's pick Dr. Joe. One of Dr. Joe's meditations, a favorite meditation of mine, which is a typical quantum field manifesting, and it's one that my dear friend Demir, who was an EMF4 graduate, went on to form pineal.org, which was a psychedelic medicine retreat with some other grads, and has just become a dear friend over the years, used this meditation to attract a buyer for his company for several million euros when everybody said it wasn't worth that and he wouldn't be able to do it. And I mention that because the meditation has two kind of sections to it, apart from getting into a low alpha frequency, which is the only place you can really start to manifest from. You can't manifest out of beta. It ties into my final point on this shortly. But he says, you pick two things to manifest. You pick one thing that you really want, and then one thing that would kind of be cool, right? And which out of those two do you think normally shows up first? Come on, answers on a postcard in the chat. The kind of cool one, says Joshua. Yes, absolutely. Thanks, buddy. Why is that? Why? That's the important part. Josh, bang in again. Less attachment. See, there is a powerful technique for manifesting that Neville Goddard taught, and he only taught it to some of his VIP students. Anyone that's familiar with Owen Locker Jr., who is the grandson of one of Neville Goddard's VIP clients. In fact, Neville mentions this gentleman in one of his books. And he tells a story about a technique that you don't see in any of the books. It was only found on one of his lectures. And it's called the knot technique. And I'll explain it because it's kind of cool. And you'll see why I'm spending time on this, because I think it's going to impact all of you in a powerful way. Right? So when it comes to the knot technique, if we use affirmations traditionally, I am wealthy, the one thing that you need for affirmations to work is alignment of the heart and mind. If you have doubt, which is the wedge that drives between the heart and the mind, if the heart and mind aren't shaking hands because the left brain pipes up and says, I'm not actually wealthy, well, you've never been wealthy, or I actually don't deserve wealth, then you're not going to have congruency in the broadcast signal to the quantum field to influence probability, circumstances, and situations to create the opportunities for you to generate wealth. So the knot technique actually disarms the left brain, because as we know, the brain doesn't process negation. if I say, do not think of a ginger cat. Definitely do not think of a big fluffy ginger cat with sad little cat eyes, like a Garfield face. Yeah, none of you are picturing a ginger cat, of course. Right, you can't, because the brain doesn't process negation. You've heard me talk about this on language patterns where you say, parents say to their kids, Johnny, don't drop the plate, and Johnny drops the plate. And then you blame Johnny instead of realizing that you caused that to happen by the language pattern by saying, don't drop the plate. And what Johnny's brain hears is drop the plate, don't, because it has to picture dropping the plate to understand what it is that you're processing and communicating. Instead of turning around as a parent and saying, hey, Johnny, hold that plate tightly, in which case Johnny doesn't drop the plate. Now, the reason we say don't drop the plate is because most people have conditioned to be negative before positive by turning on something stupid each evening called the news. Well, actually, the stupid thing is actually thinking it is the news. But let's not get started on that one. Back to the not technique. So the not technique essentially says, let's say you say, I am worth $1 million. That's your affirmation. I am worth $1 million. I'm worth $1 million. But your heart and mind are having a bit of a domestic on that. Yeah, as much as you want to believe it, it's not happening. Whereas if you turn around and say, let's pick Danielle, just because she's in my top corner of the screen here. So say, I, Danielle, am not worth $1 million. Now, it sounds counterintuitive because you'll think you'll manifest not having $1 million. But the challenge is the brain doesn't process negation, like don't drop the plate. But by saying, I am not worth $1 million, the left brain doesn't disagree. So it doesn't pipe up. And the key here is when you say, worth $1 million, you go into the feeling of being worth $1 million, but the left brain isn't contradicting just because you just said not. It's pretty cool. You have to try to experience it. And it's fairly simple. I, Peter Sage, am not worth $1 million. Right? You get the idea? And what Neville did, he introduced a concept called the not technique for that reason. Right? And the way that you got into his VIP class on this particular example back in the 1950s was he said, I'm going to give you an exercise, and anyone that follows this exercise, you're going to be amazed. He said, here's what I want you to do. I want you to write down the following phrase, I will not climb a ladder. And I want you to write it on different notes and stick it around the house. Put it on your bathroom mirror, put it on your steering wheel, put it on, there was no cell phones in those days, or personal computers. But he said, I want you to say it at least 100 times a day. And this was on a Monday. And he said, you will say, I will not climb a ladder. And he says, on Friday, this is the VIP class, but only people this week that have climbed a ladder are allowed to come to the class. And the grandfather tells the story quite passionately, saying, I followed it to the letter. I just did what he said, which is rare in these days sometimes because everyone thinks they know better. And he said, it was about Thursday when I had a friend of mine asked me to come over and help him with something. And as I turned up at his house, he was 4 steps up a ladder and he says, oh, could you please pass me that paintbrush? And I climbed up and I handed him the paintbrush. And just as I was climbing down, I suddenly realized, holy crap, I've climbed a ladder. And what it shows is how plastic reality is. Plastic in terms of moldable, that consistent, and we cover this in the Elite Men Forum on module 1 as the foundation of how you can create or rule reality. But if you are constantly putting out that signal, I will not climb a ladder, I will not climb a ladder, obviously you're imprinting climbing a ladder into the field, and it will rearrange 1,000 different things in order for that situation to present itself to you so you get the chance to climb a ladder. And when he showed up at the VIP class, same story from a dozen people, right? Now, what made that work more powerfully than people trying to do affirmations about money is exactly what Josh and a few of you here were quick to the trigger with, which was non-attachment. You don't care if you climb a ladder, if you don't climb a ladder. Yeah? If you go to the doctor and the doctor turns around and says, well, we've done all the tests and unfortunately, Mr. Smith, there is one food you can no longer eat. Yeah. And if you do, you're going to have an immediate septic shock. Right. So for the rest of your life, you can never actually eat walnuts. Some of you would be like, well, whatever. Now, if the doctor said chocolate, some of you would have a heart attack. All right. If the doctor said steak, some of you, probably me, would have a heart attack. All right. Walnuts. Yeah. Papaya. Ooh, okay. I'll give up papaya if it means staying like, no, there's less attachment. But notice the foods you have an attachment to. For some of you, money is your chocolate. Money is your steak. right? Whatever your favorite food is. So when you're trying to manifest money, there is too much attachment to it. And therefore you're doing all the right things, but the energy you're putting out is more of a repulsion. It's working against you. Everybody understand? So if you are trying to manifest money, you will not manifest money. Why? Because when it comes to money, you will try, and you will try hard because you need it. You want it. You're going to have it because there's consequences to not having it. They're painful consequences. I've already made the decision they're painful. If I can't pay the rent, if I can't pay for the holiday, if I can't get my next mortgage. So all of that energy conspires to keep you chasing the setting sun, wondering why you never get it. It's always on the horizon. Have you noticed, by the way, the way to make the money is kind of just, if I only master that, or I get that, or I just close that deal, or it's always just on the horizon. So it's believable, but it's just out of grasp. Everybody follow? That resonate a lot of the time? Well, if you see a mark on the horizon, you think, well, I'm just not running fast enough. So you get there, and what's happened to the horizon? Never going to work. Now, there are, rather than take up the entire call here, I'm going to give you a book recommendation. Now, I've given a couple of book recommendations recently. This is a different level specifically for this topic. And it's probably the best book on this subject that I've come across in a long time. And I recommend various books on money. If you want to learn how to manage money, understand money rather than be afraid of it, and most people are afraid of what they don't understand, so therefore they just blindly deal with whatever they've got in the bank or try to make money, and they never really try to build a relationship to money that makes them a master of it, right? I don't mean being a master because you've got lots of it. I mean being a master of understanding money. And a great book for that is The Richest Man in Babylon. You've heard me talk about that, George S. Clason. If you haven't read it, it just allows you to not be as intimidated by the concept of money. There you go, Danielle's holding it up. Well done. Yeah, absolute classic. Now, if you want a great book on understanding some practical steps to maximize your attraction money and minimize your repulsion, then the book by Victor Bock is How to Solve All of Your Money Problems Forever. Is a good book, but I've got a better recommendation for you specifically for this kind of issue around these two questions. Because as we cover off in module 3 on EMF, we go into detail about understanding the illusion of money. You've all heard me say on multiple lessons each week on USM, outer world follows, come on, I can lip read, right, thank you. Outer world follows inner world. So you're trying to chase money in the outer world from a scarcity mentality in the inner world. What do you think is going to happen? Yeah, but I need it. Never going to have it. So the book that I'm going to share with you here, which I would encourage all of you to download today, either on Audible or Kindle or iBooks or good old-fashioned chopping trees, whatever you fancy. But act on this, guys. It's rare that I give a book recommendation with a very high, absolutely non-negotiable, go do it if you want to master money kind of recommendation. And that is A Happy Pocket Full of Money. A Happy Pocket Full of Money. I actually had a copy lying around. I bought it here earlier. And somebody's going to put a link to it in Amazon on the chat right now because you can ask me the author and I can't spell his surname. So somebody's going to do that in there. But the author was actually one of the primary consultants for the movie The Secret. And his metaphors and his understanding and his holistic approach to appreciating wealth consciousness is the best I found. And I share that because I don't know if we have any people here from EMF 10 or 11. We're going back to when we used to deliver the modules on stone tablets. All right. There you go. Thank you so much, Lisa. Yeah, and Sasha, there you go. So I had a lady that used to be my assistant, and she came over to visit. And it's ironically, she was actually for the first time in a while came over to visit again. She left today. But I gave this example on an EMF call, which I think was EMF 10, which she was also a student on. And we were out shopping together here in Tenerife. And I was actually buying almonds at the time, would you believe? And I went to get some almonds. She's like, oh, don't buy those. They're like an extra €2 or something. Whereas, these are, whatever. And I'm like, Faye, her name was Kay, so Kay, I'm like, you got to be kidding. I says, take that. There's a saying in Bulgaria, Nadia is one of my that I'm not so rich that I buy cheap. Fascinating phrase. But I was demonstrating the fact that as an abundance mentality, why would I care for an extra couple of euros on buying what I want? It's a different sense of understanding. Now, Nadia, my girlfriend, was brought up in communism in Bulgaria. Yeah, she remembers standing outside a long line of people outside to get their ration of bread, and the fact that everything was limited. And there's a scarcity mentality that's built in. Anybody relate to their parents fighting over money that gave you a scarcity mentality? And I've always battled similarly with Nadia. I'm like, honey, don't worry about it. Yeah, well, that's too expensive really for us. I'm paying the damn thing, right? It's like, relax, right? I'll decide if it's too expensive. FYI, it's not. Yeah, but if you did this and did that, you could save. I don't want to save. I don't come from a saving mentality. I come from an abundance mentality, and it's always served me well. And we've always had that little kind of fight. She's been, self-confessed terrible with money. I met her, she had nothing, right? She makes me keep all the money because if I put it in her account, it'll go to nothing and AliExpress will get it all, right? It's like, you get the idea. So I gave her a copy of this book, and it's the one thing that was able to shift her poverty consciousness to an abundance consciousness. Looked at other stuff, but a happy pocket full of money, I was massively impressed with, because I've had an abundance mentality pretty much my whole life. I've never known how much money's in my wallet since I was 18. I don't count. If there's none there, more will come. I'll always have what I need. It's a congruent level of beliefs, and outer world follows inner world. I'm not super smart. I'm not a financial genius. I just have a relationship to money that most people don't have because they're too busy focused on scarcity, and outer world leads inner world, not the other way around. Is this making sense, guys? So shifting a money consciousness, money is not real. Again, we cover this in detail in module 3 on the EMF. Money doesn't exist in the way that you actually conceptualize it. And when you know that, right, and you can shift your relationship, you realize, and I'll give you this for free, your outer world of money or no money is the shadow that is cast by your inner world relationship to money. How many people just felt what I said? Your outer world perception of what's in your bank, your relationship to money, your finances right now, your falling through your fingers or chasing money or scarcity, whatever it is, your outer world situation, financial situation, is the shadow that is cast by your inner world relationship to money. So stop trying to focus on the shadow. You probably heard that one. And I get passionate. I'm not trying to be a draconian school teacher with a whip. All right? I care enough about you guys to get passionate enough to drill into you that you were born to benefit from abundance. There is more money available to more people than at any time in human history. And if you're not being able to dip your hand into that bag of gold, it's not because it ain't there. It's not because you're not good enough. It's not because you don't deserve it. None of that's true. It's all made up BS, belief system. It's simply the reflection of the shadow you're casting based upon your inner world relationship. And A Happy Pocket Full of Money is the best book that I found to start shifting that quickly. Because once you get it, it's easy. Is that useful?